I think so, yes. So recording has started. So hello to the people watching this session later on YouTube. So we just finished the introduction of our user group meeting today, and we do the same thing that we do each and every quarter, which is take a look at Adobe Analytics release notes and see which new features have been added. And this quarter was not so strong on product features that have been released. So let's start, as always, with what has been released in the beginning of the year. So, beginning of the year, we already got some updates for a lot of interfaces in Adobe Analytics. So, for example, for the data warehouse interface, where you can now see all the requests in the new interface from all the people in your company. The key metric visualization has been slightly updated and slightly enriched in terms of features. There's been new documentation, and they've been so proud that they actually put that in the release notes, as they should do, about the data warehouse API. So that's something for you to check out as well. There's been some updates to the good old app measurement library in the front end as well. So that's actually fun for anyone who is asking, now that we have Web SDK, is app measurement just going to be retired? No, they're still updating that one. So, and there's some great proof for that promise. You will see there's some mentions of activity map in Web SDK and request bundling. That one will pop up a couple of times throughout this presentation. There's also a new column available in the projects landing page to show you all the projects when they've been last used, which is super handy for cleaning up unused projects. If you're using the analytics for, how's it called, advertising analytics features, then there's new consent flags that are required by Google, which are now supported in analytics as well. If you're using Report Builder and you're using a component in Report Builder, then that component should now be showing in the reports for your calculator metrics manager and the segments manager as well. If you're using any of the cloud accounts for data feeds and data warehouse and classification sets, you should now be able to share those across your separate accounts, which is super cool to be efficient about that. You can now manage your storage locations if you're bringing data into the cloud through data feeds, data warehouse, or classification sets. And still one of the coolest updates this year, also the increase in default low traffic thresholds. I don't know what's wrong with my mouth today, sorry. So before that, we had a limit of 500,000 unique values per month that we could by default get for all the reports, and below that, we would then get a low traffic item in our reports. And now that limit has been lifted to 2 million values, which is quite cool. Then, after that, we had more updates. So we have now the Analytics Real-Time Reporting API in the 2.0 version, so the newer version of the API, which is quite cool. In XDM and Web SDK, we have now a method to set context data. So similar how we did that in the app measurement world, we can now also do it in XDM with the Web SDK through the data object, which is quite cool. We have some new methods in the classifications API guide, also new documentation that's been released. Also new data sources API documentation, which is always super cool to have. And then you can see 2 line items on this page already. So for activity map, there's fewer server calls already mentioned quite some time ago, but then we also have some improvements for link tracking. So Adobe's really trying to make some of the old functionality work as well, where we save on extra requests that are sent to Adobe servers because we bundle them and then we just send them in batch, which is pretty cool. But not to skip on those super cool front-end features here in the middle as well, because we can now create hyperlinks in Analysis Workspace. If you want to see how that's working, you can also check out the recording from the last session where, or even 2 sessions ago, we've already shown that feature working. So in Analysis Workspace, you can now make links clickable. So if you have a URL dimension in Adobe Analytics, then you can use that to make your page name report clickable, or just the URL report as well. So that is super cool. we have a new table of content feature for Workspace. So in Analysis Workspace in the left side rail, you can now enable a table of content, which will show you like the structure of your Analysis Workspace project. So if you have nice and sweeping titles and like cool sections and panels in there, it will show all of those, and they're clickable. So you can also just scroll down to the appropriate report, which is also super cool because that one is also available if you use the share without login feature. So if you share something to your marketing agency, maybe if you share something with someone who does not have a login as well, they will always see that table of content, which is super cool. In drop-down filters, you can now select more than one field. Sadly, there's no option to make a field just single select. All currently is multi-select. So that is cool. So you can now select more than one drop-down filter, which is nice. And you have some improvements for link tracking, as mentioned before. So far about the newest Adobe Analytics features. I've told you there's not been that many this quarter, but there's also some important changes in Adobe Analytics that you need to be aware of. So the Get Page Load Time plugin has been deprecated since quite some time. So if you're still using that, you can. It's not going anywhere, but it's not supported and further developed anymore. The Adobe API may contain new fields as Adobe wants them to be added, which is kind of expected, I would say. So if you use custom visit IDs, then you have now a 13-month expiration of those values. So be aware of that. There's been some updates also to the ISO region database of Adobe Analytics, which is the database that takes care of identifying where your users come from in the world. So if you've seen like some countries like slightly going down, some countries slightly going up, or like some regions within countries, then that might be the reason for that if it was around May 10 this year. If you're not aware, Adobe is making some changes to some server-to-server, like integration use cases for Adobe I/O and the API. So if you get those pesky emails telling you that you have some outdated integrations, then you can consider migrating those by January 1st next year. So that's something to look into. And then there's one new announcement here as well, because the Adobe Analytics 1.4 API is going to be retired at some point. And the current date we have announced for that is August 12, 2026. So still plenty of time until then, like almost 2 years. But yeah, be aware like that old API, the 1.4 API, no real surprise there, but it's going to go away eventually. And yeah, good reason to migrate to the 2.0 API as well, because it's also the one that is supported by Customer Journey Analytics, for example. So anything that you build with that API will be more future-proof anyway. Yeah, great time to migrate to that new API version. So that's all I have for the newest releases and feature updates. So if you're on YouTube, then thanks for watching, and maybe see you at a user group meeting live when it happens in the future. I'm going to stop the recording now, so good day to you.